Uganda first.
Hello, welcome to Youth of Purpose, a show that is here to transform you and empower you as a young person to be able to contribute to Uganda's development. This show is brought to you by the National Secretariat for Patriotism Call, Office of the President, under the theme Uganda First. As a young person, you can also put a brick to make sure that Uganda becomes a better nation, and in the 20 years to come, you look back and say, Uganda is because I am. And most times we look at politics to be for people maybe who are grown-ups, and we neglect it as young people. Is that right? I don't think so. As young people, we can also put a brick by participating and contribute to everything that goes on in our country. Now today we're talking about youth participation in politics. Are young people really participating in politics and leadership of this country the way they should be? Are they being given an opportunity to be able to participate, or do they even need to be given an opportunity, or they have to create one for themselves? Today we are talking to the chairperson for National Youth Council, Eyeru Jacob, and he's going to be telling us first of all what the council is doing, what's their obligation, and paint for us a picture about the participation of youth in the politics of this country. Hello, Jacob.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome to Youth of Purpose. Kindly introduce yourself.
By way of introduction, my name is Jacob Eyeru. My home district is Soroti, the land of Teso.
Soroti is in the
Soroti is in the eastern part of this country.
Yes.
If you use the bus or go by road, you will be talking about somewhere near 320 kilometers from Kampala. And that's where we call home.
Okay.
I am very honored to serve the young people of this country as a National Youth Chairperson. It's for the generation as it is and for where our country is, it's perhaps the most important role that I have held in my life, and I foresee to have held for my life. Because our country is by very much a very young country, and now is a time when young people and the leadership of young people must make an indelible contribution in terms of what we bring to the table for the country, much more than what we demand from the country. This is a time when we must see how young people are leading the country into the place of our hope.
You are the home of the National Youth Council. Tell us about it.
The National Youth Council is the apex structure of the leadership of young people in this country. It has a committee at the village.
Okay.
Every village in this country, over 69,000 villages, now there are over 70,000 in the last election, has a committee of youth, 9 people. And those are the people that were lined up behind, okay, to be elected as the youth leaders. They have to be between 18 and 30 years. Then those went to the parish and elected 9 at the parish. Those went to the sub-county to elect the 9 of the sub-county. Then 3 from the sub-county went to the district to elect the 9 of the district. 3 from each district came to the national level to elect the 11 of the country. So I am the chairperson elected at the 11 of the country, but I had to come from my village up to the national level. So being a member of a National Youth Council, National Executive Committee is a hard task. You have very many elections.
Before we even come to your task,
yes.
Those are very many positions, talking from the LOC until the national level.
Yes.
What are you doing, guys? And really, should you even be complaining that the youth are not given enough space to participate in politics? For you who are engaged and have those positions, what are you doing?
Firstly, our mandate is very clear. The National Youth Council is established by the National Youth Council Act of 1993. It has had a sequence of amendments, but the mandate has never been amended. Our mandate is in section 3, and it says we are there to unite the youth. We are there to involve them in issues of productivity to them. And then we are there to protect the youth from manipulation. Why young people continue, even with the presence of the National Youth Council, to say that we are not being listened to, we are not being heard, is because the National Youth Council decisions are not ultimately the decisions implemented in the country. There are very many levels of implementation in the country, and those levels of implementation do not always reflect the position of the National Youth Council. And that is why even when you have that vehicle, which is the National Youth Council, there is need for continuous assessment in terms of what government is bringing out, what political actors are doing, what local governments are implementing, and how they actually relate to the needs of young people. So that is why continuous agitation is very important.
Yes.
Yeah, so that is why we continue. But in terms of what we are actually doing, the National Youth Council holds a National Youth Council sitting annually by law, and it has to happen at least once. And in terms of that sitting, we get young people's voices in terms of what is affecting young people at the grassroots, and what are the current needs that we need to project in terms of a necessity. But also as a country, where should young people be going in terms of a forward-looking programs of government. So for example, now young people are talking a lot about the situation of teenage pregnancies and how they can play a role or contribute to what government needs to do to change that trend. COVID has happened and people have lost jobs. None bigger than the demographic reality of young people losing jobs and not having a platform for them to actually earn their livelihoods. So the National Youth Council plays a pivotal role in ensuring that government looks at youth and ensures that they are still afloat. How do we get stimulus packages for businesses? How do we get stimulus packages for people who have lost jobs? How do we protect businesses that are dying and of young people? How do we create alternative livelihoods for young people in a way that they feel like they are as much Ugandan as the rich man who gets government to give him a lot of money for his business?
Is action being taken to all those challenges you've talked about when you represent the young people as the National Youth Council, or it's just about talking? Is your voice really that relevant?
Firstly, our voice is very relevant. Whether action is taken or not, your voice is very relevant.
Okay.
Because I'll give you an example. The struggle for the independence of the countries did not happen in one day, neither in 1 year. In fact, some people who began struggles did not see them through. Same goes for our liberation struggle as a country from 1980 to 1985, 86. People that started it did not start it then. President Museveni was trying to liberate the country all the way back from 1968, 69 as a student. 66. You understand? So it is not that your voice is an end in itself. It is a means to an end. So it is a responsibility for us to have our voices added. But even in terms of results, we are having results. For instance, government is now implementing a stimulus package of 200 billion for MSMEs, where most of the young people are employed. And that is a product of continuous advocacy. Government has now adopted a quota system on the parish development model funds, which is a product of continuous advocacy by the Youth Council. Government has accepted to start a graduate startup scheme for graduate youth in terms of financing entrepreneurship for them. That is a direct product of the National Youth Council. As recent as the International Youth Day on 12th August, we made known that idea and the President bought into it. Now we are working on the dynamics of how implementation would work. So our voices are not in vain. The vanity is in not having a voice. The youth cannot lack a voice that speaks for them, whether it's in Parliament or through the structure of a National Youth Council.
Getting you right there, but away from the affirmative action of youth in Parliament and all that, kindly paint for us the picture of youth participation, youth engagement in politics in this country.
One, Uganda is perhaps the most democratized country in terms of structure for youth involvement. Whether talking about youth or women, we are a best practice situation country. Every country that looks at our structure on paper is more than happy to want to learn from us. We are the most inclusive political structure in the world. I can say that without a fear of doubt. So in terms of whether we have voices everywhere, there is no doubt. What we need to work on is the impact of those voices everywhere. Because Parliament, for example, has 5 youth members of Parliament. But in terms of the constitution of youth in Parliament, we have over 20 direct youth members of Parliament who are below the age of 30. If you look at the constitution of members of parliament who have come through National Youth Council structures or youth leadership structures, whether student leadership or something,
Yes.
and therefore they relate easily with the demands of young people, you're looking at over 100 people. So the mobilization of youth issues or for youth issues should be an easygoing. But the understanding and the organization to always structure those people
Yes.
and those institutions to focus on young people is not always present. Because today they are handling issues of teachers. Teachers drag the whole year. Before you know it, your nurses who are on strike drag the whole year. The conversation of youth, the responsibility to present that conversation is of direct representation, whether it is by youth members of parliament or it is by the National Youth Council. And so that is where our actions are now very critical.
Why is it
as a
that
country.
Most times when we've seen the voice of young people come out so loud in politics, it's so much portrayed to be of violence? Why?
No, it's because of the reality. It's not portrayed to be. It is because
Is
we
it
have
true
allowed...
that the youth
No,
who are
no.
participating in it are violent?
In part. And that's what I'm talking about. That it's because we have allowed that narrative to be the growing narrative. That those young people that can be the voices of reason are not talking. And they have left that, because the political space is always present and someone always occupies it.
Yes.
Either the army occupies it if there is no democracy and there is dictatorship, the army will just occupy it, or tribalism will occupy it if the voices of nationalism are not there, or nationalism will occupy it if the voices of Pan-Africanism cannot be allowed.
Should we
So,
say that's the nature of the
no,
environment
let me
of
complete
politics
the
that
point.
we have?
Yeah, no, it isn't. That's what I'm saying. That the young people who have gone through school exist. They know about the cycle, but they are disinterested. Their sense of patriotism to contribute to their country is absent. And unless we get those young people interested, the politics will always attract the ones who realize that there is space and it requires people and the qualifications are no education, so I can go in. There is space, it requires S6 equivalent, but S6 equivalent does not mean you passed S6. It means you sat. So every failure can be there. You understand? So it is the responsibility of those of you that have gone through school and have developed a sense of understanding that this country is yours. The outcomes of our development are our own to describe and to manufacture. To step there and offer your contribution. If you offer your contribution and it's violent, we'll then describe the contribution of young people as violent. If you offer it and it is civilized and it is debate and it is idea driven, you will redefine the contribution of young people in this country. So that is where we come in with leadership.
Are there models that can really mentor the young people to play politics that is clean and politics of value that helps our country to develop?
Yes. Firstly, our history is not without examples. Every actor of independence in Africa was a young person. All our actors were below 35. They grew into the action. I'll give you an example of Mzee Mandela.
Yes.
For 27 years, he was in prison. For him to qualify for that prison, he had acted for at least 10 years backwards to qualify to be in prison for 27 years. People like Steve Bantu Biko was a student leader in South Africa who lost his life for apartheid fight. If you look at President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, while a student of university, forget us who are talking about the age of 30, while between the age of 18 and 23, he was going to liberate the people of Mozambique and contribute to that struggle. If you look at Uganda's story, whether you're looking at Dr. Apollo Milton Obote or you're looking at our first Chief Justice, you're still talking about people who are in the prime of their youthfulness, who came out of their youthful necessity of demanding who can I marry to realizing what the country needs. Even the liberation struggle was hinged around young people. General Mugisha Muntu, by the time he was army commander, he was 27 years of age. He had already fought since 22 for a very ideological war.
The youth in that prime age that you're talking about, say they are not being given space.
No, I think that, like I started with, there is enough space in Uganda. The question is the quality of the contribution you're bringing. If the National Youth Council under my leadership achieves nothing, you can't blame it on the president. The National Youth Council exists. You can't blame it on the parliament. The National Youth Council exists.
Yes.
If the youth members of parliament initiate no bill in parliament, you can't blame it on parliament. The private members option exists. The quality of a generation, of a contribution of our leadership as young people,
Yes.
is dependent on young people. It has no dependence on the old. I can tell you that young people deciding to strike tomorrow is a contribution, but it is one that they have elected. Rather than them sitting down to have a conversation, they have decided to sit down and have a strike. So the contribution is always present,
Okay.
whether by omission or commission. It's always a contribution.
Okay, thank you so much, Jacob. Now we are going to listen into a number of youth. They are going to be telling us, are they really being given space? Is the space available? Are those ones who are already in the politics, who have leadership positions, playing their role? We'll be right back.
Youth of Purpose.
Hello, my name is Mujisha Emanzi, the team leader of a Pan-Africanist youth organization called Ufumbuzi Africa. In Uganda, according to the Uganda National Bureau of Statistics, we have a percentage of 78% of young people. Of the 78%, 64% are young people under the age of 18. So what does this mean? Now, when we talk about politics, we're not talking about the politics of yelling, calling names, and bringing about issues of sectarianism and tribalism. We are talking about youth participating in the entire spectrum of politics, which encompasses governance, the governance architecture, the policy formulation at all levels, from the grassroots to the executive. However, the question is, as more young people are getting interested in participating in politics, have they received the right mentorship? Have the young people that are coming into politics received the right training? Do they have the right content? Because for me, it's not just a matter of participation. It is a matter of coming to participate with a knowledge-based philosophy. We want young people to come and start discussing issues that have facts, that have statistics, and are relatable to our day-to-day running of events. So some of the hindrances that have been stopping young people from participating effectively from leadership and politics is, one, some of these offices and some of these leadership roles have previously were ring-fenced by the rich, the famous, and the powerful, which made it very hard for a young person to penetrate into the system, because the average cost of a young person to get into parliament is about $100,000. That's about 360 million Ugandan shillings, which is still a far-fetched dream of an average young person like me, who might have the ideas, but I do not have the financial muscle to sustain my process back into the parliament. So that was issue number two. Issue number two, young people actually didn't have the interest previously, because we thought, well, politics, that's a thing of big people to discuss the yama things. For us, we shall just wait to vote. So for that matter, I would like to encourage young people to participate more in issues of politics, starting from the grassroots, in their communities, their parishes, and also those in higher positions to take it on more seriously. I thank you very much.
I'm Sharif Mangaraine from Uganda district. I'm here to discuss as the reason why some youth, or most of us youth, are not so much getting involved into politics of our country, that is Uganda. We have so many hindrances, but the first one that I will have to talk about today, the continuity of our seniors who have failed or refused to leave the political platform right from the time when they started up to date. We went to school, them telling us they were the leaders of tomorrow. Tomorrow has come, which is today, and they still don't want to exit the platform. So to me, I think the issue of these seasoned leaders who have overtaken time on the political platform have put a very big hindrance that is failing the youth to come and take on positions, because it is them with the money, it is them with the influence. And remember, when you do not have the invisible hand today in Uganda, who is behind your candidature, who is behind your support, it becomes very hard for you to come and stand and win an election. Even when you are youth, your supporters can easily be manipulated.
I'm Sukundane Ivan.
I'm called Juliet Chindiam Tuma, and I'm here for the same topic. For a brief background on youth participation in politics, demographically we have 70% of the total population under the voting age as youth, but only 30% are participating in the politics. Now, how is it and why is it like that? Only 30% representing 70% of the total voting age just simply means we are not there.
So one of the majority of the hindrances, as they have said, is the finances and the political instability. You see, majority of the youth who are trying hard to engage in politics, they are not finding comfortable environment to participate. Reason being, if you are a son of a nobody, then you have no space to participate in politics.
There is this thing of we the youth having been commercialized as the politics having been commercialized. We the youth have gone into accept just being bought and just being used by the elites in a way of me as me. I will come in and say, let me be someone's campaign manager instead of participating and putting in my own money. So what people have done, they have actually participated in the other side of only voting and not in the side of participating to take the leadership positions, because they believe when you participate in the other side of campaigning for someone, you get lump sums of money other than putting it in and you still don't get it.
Youth of Purpose.
That's it. As you can see, we can lament day by day, but what matters is what are we going to do as young people to make sure that we provide a solution to these challenges. We've talked about a number of hindrances to young people as far as participating in politics is concerned.
Yes.
What can we do to make sure that the doors are opened and the space, you said the space is available. How can we be able to show the young people that the space is available, mentor them that when they get into those positions, they do play the right role?
You see, the necessity of education in a community is to determine how people will think in that community, how people view and perceive things. Our country has such an elaborated opportunity through education that there is a National Students Association. The role of a National Students Association is to provide platform for young people to have a sense, while they're still in high school, a sense of nationality and a sense of nationalism in their leadership.
Yes.
If we can encourage young people from schools, from the small responsibilities they have, to begin contributing to bigger conversations than whether you have tucked in school or not, than whether food is enough for lunch or not,
Yes.
and begin asking them as prefects, what is your position on the challenge of Uganda? What do you think is the challenge of Uganda? And students begin to discuss that. Then we move a notch higher to say, okay, at the National Students Association, what is your policy recommendation on the operation of private schools and public schools to the institution of NYC, to the institution of the Ministry of Education and Sports? We need to structure the conversations in the structures themselves first, to be conversations that have national merit and platform for listenership. If the Speaker of Parliament is approached by students annually to say, under our umbrella body, we want to have a meeting with Parliament or the Parliamentary Committee on Education and want to present our alternative propositions on the year in education, that becomes irrelevant. When the youth outside see the relevance of the available platforms, then they gain interest in them. But because the National Youth Council does not project its relevance, then youth leaders or youth in the country are not interested in its existence. They are interested in the member of parliament who buys them sugar, because that is the conversation that meets them midway. So I want to insist that the relevance of young people, or the solutions that we give in the structures of organization, are the ones that attract other young people into interesting themselves in politics.
To be specific, Jacob, you as the chairperson for National Youth Council, what are those clear and specific hindrances to youth participation in politics, and how can they be overcome?
Firstly, is the monetization of our politics. Even for a youth election, you need money. And not money to buy your posters, not money to have airtime. Money because the young person is going to ask you for money for transport. That monetization of our politics needs to be dealt with at a structural level. If government can have strict rules on engagement of political interplay.
Yes.
For example, the election of the National Youth Council leaders happens in a collegiate vote. That college election has young people needing to be transported from their districts, reside somewhere before they can then be casting their vote. If the Electoral Commission says no, there will always be transport from regions to bring you to a center. Okay?
Yes.
Number one. Number two, you're not allowed to campaign before. If anything like a poster is seen, you are disqualified. Number three, everything should happen, campaigns and so on, happen in a space where people can see there is no money. People are checked to enter without money. Maybe for a week it's a camp, breakfast, lunch and supper. If government invests in that process and then the camp happens like that, you have a different outcome. But in the event that that is not the outcome, then it's about the quality of the people that we are attracting to the structure. If the three people per district who elect us as a National Youth Council are able to be people that do not need any economic outcomes, for example, you don't need 50,000 to determine your mind, but a young man who earns nothing throughout a year, that 50,000 will play his head.
Just 5,000.
Just 5,000, you understand? Even 2,000 while he's lining up will play his head. So that is one way to look at it. The other hindrance that we have is the lack of engagement by government of youth structures. If someone is elected and for 5 years they are not benefited in any way, in sense of one, recognition on government events, two, involvement in government programs, whether in monitoring or even in popularization. The young person who comes out of that structure has a bad report about being, and that's why I say that that's just a voting machinery for government. That must be changed for the attraction of youth with brains for what they can contribute through that structure. So that is what we are working towards, because that's a big hindrance. The final one I'll point you to is the lack of generational mandate. Young people have failed to define what they want as young people. They always have demands that are based on what I want as an individual. So you're looking at a young person that says, I need jobs. You understand? We don't have jobs. Jobs are a construct of economic policy. You understand? How the country is developing its job construct is not something that they can wake up tomorrow and provide for. It's a build-up of a particular term-long nature of economic policy.
Which we can also contribute
which we can contribute to. For example, now the parish development model is putting this much money at a parish level. Young people can contribute to how that will produce outcomes in 5 years for youth by how they involve themselves in the process now.
I think I'll even invite you another time to talk about youth involvement and how they are benefiting from government
I'd be more than
programs.
glad. I'd be more than glad.
That would also be a very, very, very good discussion. Jacob is the chairperson for National Youth Council, and he's been elaborating to us youth participation in politics and how we can utilize the space that he said is available. Youth of Purpose is brought to you by the National Secretariat for Patriotism Corps, Office of the President, under the theme Uganda First. All the participation, whether it's in politics, whether it's in the economy of this country, is a patriotic role. You putting a brick to make sure that Uganda becomes a better country. My name is Ivan Tumukunde. See you next time.
Youth of Purpose, brought to you by
I'm Joanny Takawalia, the Pikau Goodwill Ambassador. I'm here to inform you that Uganda Cancer Institute, together with the Palliative Care Association of Uganda, in partnership with the Ministry of Health, will host the 3rd Uganda Conference on Cancer and Palliative Care on 23rd and 24th September 2021. The theme of the conference is Cancer and Palliative Care in COVID-19 and Other Challenging Situations. This year's conference is a unique one and will be held virtually with some sessions broadcast live on UBC TV. We will have panel discussions, plenary sessions, and workshops, as well as presentations of abstract, where scientists will share latest research on cancer and palliative care. This conference will bring together at least 400 policymakers, researchers, health providers, patients, and the general public who will be watching online. I encourage you all to register for this important event. Registration for Ugandan delegates is 200,000 shillings.
For more information, call 0392 080 71.